The grand hall of the Zephyrian royal palace shimmered with colors that human eyes could barely perceive. Crystalline walls pulsed with bioluminescent patterns, casting ethereal shadows across the assembled crowd of alien dignitaries. At the center of it all stood Marcus Chen, the lone human representative in his bulky environmental armor, looking decidedly out of place among the elegant, slender forms of the Zephyrians. Princess Lyrelai floated gracefully above the polished floor, her translucent wings catching the light like stained glass. At 19 years old by her species count, she was considered barely more than a child, yet her violet eyes held the arrogance of someone who had never known anything but privilege. Her skin shifted between shades of pearl and silver as she circled the human soldier, examining him like a curious specimen. "So this is the famous human warrior," she said, her melodic voice carrying a sharp edge of mockery. The translator in Marcus's helmet converted her words instantly, though it couldn't quite capture the condescension in her tone. "Tell me, soldier, do all your kind hide behind such crude metal shells, or are you simply too fragile to breathe our air?" Marcus stood perfectly still, his face hidden behind the reflective visor of his helmet. He had volunteered for this diplomatic mission, knowing full well the risks. The Zephyrians had only recently made contact with humanity, and this gathering was meant to establish peaceful relations. As Earth's military attaché, his presence was both symbolic and practical, a show of strength wrapped in diplomacy. "Your Highness," Marcus replied, his voice steady through the helmet speakers. "The armor is a necessary precaution. Our species have different environmental needs." Lyrelai's laughter tinkled like breaking glass. "Different needs? You mean inferior biology?" She gestured to the other aliens in the room, the crystalline Altarians, the gaseous nebula dancers, the multi-limbed Chronari, all mingling freely without any protective gear. "Every other species here can adapt. Only humans cower behind their technology." The room grew quiet. Several diplomatic officials shifted uncomfortably, sensing the tension. Ambassador Threen, an elderly Zephyrian with faded wings, attempted to intervene. "Princess, perhaps we should—" "No, Uncle!" Lyrelai cut him off, her eyes never leaving Marcus. "I want to understand these humans. They claim to be warriors, yet they can't even stand in our presence without life support. How can such weak creatures have survived long enough to achieve space travel?" Marcus felt his jaw tighten. He'd been briefed on Zephyrian culture. They valued physical perfection and natural adaptation above all else. To them, humanity's reliance on technology was a sign of evolutionary failure. But knowing this intellectually and experiencing their contempt firsthand were two different things. "We survived through ingenuity, Your Highness," Marcus said calmly. "What we lack in natural abilities, we compensate for with innovation and determination." "Compensate?" Lyrelai flew closer, her wings creating a gentle breeze that would have been toxic to Marcus without his suit's filtration system. "That's just another word for inadequate. Look at you, wrapped in metal and plastic like a larvae in a cocoon. Do you even have wings beneath all that armor? Can you fly? Can you see the full spectrum of light? Can you hear the songs of the cosmos?" "No," Marcus admitted. "We cannot." "Then why?" Lyrelai pressed, her voice rising with each word. "Do your people presume to stand as equals among the galactic community? You are children playing with tools you've stolen from better species. You are parasites, feeding off the achievements of others." The insult hung heavy in the air. Several Zephyrians nodded in agreement while others looked away in embarrassment. The human diplomatic team, seated in their own environmental bubble across the room, tensed visibly. Marcus took a deep breath, the sound mechanical through his respirator. He'd faced hostile aliens before, in boardrooms and battlefields alike, but something about this spoiled princess's casual cruelty struck deeper than any weapon. "Your Highness speaks of natural superiority," Marcus said slowly. "Yet here we stand, in a palace built with tools, speaking through technology, celebrating achievements made possible by innovation. Even your species uses technology. The difference is that humans don't pretend otherwise." Lyraleigh's skin flushed a deep purple, a sign of anger among her kind. "How dare you compare our elegant bioengineering to your crude machines? Our technology grows from within, harmonious with nature. Yours is imposed from without, a crutch for the crippled." She flew higher, addressing the entire assembly. "Shall I tell you what I see when I look at this human? I see fear. Fear of the air, fear of the light, fear of everything beyond their narrow experience. They lock themselves in metal boxes because they're too weak to face the universe as it truly is." The princess descended again, hovering inches from Marcus's visor. "You want to know what I think of your species, soldier? You're an evolutionary dead end, a mistake that somehow learned to copy better beings. You contribute nothing original, create nothing beautiful, offer nothing but your fumbling attempts to mimic true civilization." Marcus remained silent, his hands clasped behind his back in a parade rest position. Through his helmet's display, he could see his own vital signs: heart rate elevated but controlled, stress hormones within acceptable ranges. The suit's AI suggested several diplomatic responses, but he ignored them all. "Nothing to say?" Lyraleigh taunted. "Perhaps your translator is malfunctioning, another failure of human technology. Or maybe you're simply too stupid to understand when you're being insulted." "I understand perfectly, Your Highness," Marcus replied quietly. "Then defend yourself. Show some pride in your species. Or are humans too cowardly even for that?" The challenge echoed through the hall. Marcus could feel the weight of expectation from both sides, his fellow humans waiting for him to respond, the aliens curious to see how the primitive would react. Military training had prepared him for many scenarios, but not for this particular brand of humiliation. "Princess Lyraleigh," he began formally, "I came here as a representative of Earth, hoping to build bridges between our peoples. I've stood here and listened to your assessment of humanity. I've endured your mockery with patience as my duty requires." "Duty," Lyraleigh spat the word like a curse. "Another chain you wrap around yourselves. Tell me, soldier, what does your duty say about standing here like a statue while I speak the truth about your species' inadequacy?" Marcus felt something shift inside him. Not anger exactly, but a kind of clarity. He'd spent 3 years preparing for this mission, learning alien languages, studying xenobiology, training his body to endure the stress of off-world environments. 3 years of dedication. And for what? To be mocked by a child who'd never faced a moment of hardship in her sheltered life? "You know what, Princess?" Marcus said, his voice carrying a different tone now. "You're right." Lyraleigh blinked, momentarily thrown off balance. What?" "You're right. Humans are weak compared to Zephyrians. We can't fly. We can't breathe your atmosphere. We need tools and technology for everything." He reached up to his helmet's release mechanism. "We're so pathetically fragile that exposure to your air would kill me in minutes." Warning lights flashed on his display. His team's voices crackled through the comm, urging him to stop. But Marcus had made his decision. "So you know what I'm going to do." He pressed the first seal release. A hiss of escaping air made several aliens step back. "I'm going to prove you right." "What are you doing?" Lyraleigh demanded, suddenly alarmed. "You've made it clear that humans don't belong here," Marcus continued, releasing the second seal. "That we're parasites, evolutionary dead ends, cosmic mistakes, and maybe you're right. Maybe we shouldn't pretend to be something we're not." The final seal disengaged. Marcus lifted the helmet from his head, exposing his face to the toxic atmosphere. Immediately, his lungs began to burn. The Zephyrian air was rich in compounds that were essentially poison to human physiology. Without the helmet's protection, he had perhaps 10 minutes before serious damage would occur. But he didn't stop there. With practiced movements, he began removing the rest of his armor. Chest plate, gauntlets, leg guards. Each piece fell to the polished floor with a clang that echoed through the now silent hall. "Stop!" Lorelei commanded, her earlier arrogance replaced by confusion. "Put your armor back on. You'll die." "Why do you care?" Marcus asked, his voice already rougher as the alien atmosphere attacked his throat. "I'm just a weak human, remember? An evolutionary failure?" He stood before them in his simple uniform, vulnerable and unprotected. His skin was already showing signs of reaction to the hostile environment, red patches spreading across his exposed arms and face. But he stood straight, meeting Lorelei's gaze without flinching. "You wanted to see human pride?" Marcus coughed, tasting copper. "This is it. We don't hide behind our technology. We choose to use it. We don't rely on it because we're cowards. We embrace it because we're smart enough to recognize our limitations and overcome them." He took a step toward the exit, then another. Each movement was deliberate, controlled, even as his body screamed for oxygen it couldn't properly process. "But if our presence here offends you so deeply, Your Highness, then I'll remove it. No armor, no technology, no weak human contaminating your perfect gathering. This is insane." Ambassador Threen fluttered forward. "Someone help him." "No." Marcus held up a hand, stopping the Zephyrian's approach. "The princess has made her position clear. Humans aren't welcome here. We're beneath you. So I'll do you all a favor and leave." He turned to face Lorelei one last time. Blood was now trickling from his nose, a side effect of the atmospheric pressure differences. But his eyes remained steady, locked on hers. "You talk about evolution, Princess. You talk about superiority and natural selection. But you've forgotten something important." He smiled, the expression ghastly on his deteriorating face. "Humans didn't evolve to be the strongest or the fastest or the most adaptable. We evolved to be unstoppable. We evolved to look at impossible odds and say, 'Watch me.' We evolved to take whatever the universe throws at us and throw it right back." He gestured to the discarded armor. "That technology you mock? We built it. From nothing. From scratch. While your species was gifted with wings, we looked at the sky and said, 'We'll find another way.' While you were born breathing any atmosphere, we looked at the stars and said, 'We'll bring our own air.' That's not weakness, Princess. That's the most powerful evolutionary trait in existence. The absolute refusal to accept limitations." Marcus turned and walked toward the exit. Each step was agony, his lungs burning, his skin feeling like it was on fire. But he didn't stumble, didn't falter. The assembled aliens parted before him, unsure how to react to this display of incomprehensible human behavior. As he reached the doorway, he paused and looked back one final time. "Enjoy your party, Your Highness. Enjoy your natural superiority. But remember this moment. Remember the day a weak, pathetic human showed you what real strength looks like." And with that, Marcus Chen walked out of the Zephyrian royal palace, leaving behind his armor, his mission, and a room full of stunned aliens. Behind him, Princess Lorelei stared at the abandoned armor, her perfect features twisted in an expression she'd never worn before: doubt. The blood droplets on the floor seemed to pulse with accusation, each one a testament to something she didn't quite understand. "Uncle," she said quietly, her voice having lost all its earlier confidence. What just happened?" Ambassador Threen's old eyes were sad as he replied, "You just learned why the humans survived, child, and why they'll outlast us all." The medical bay of the human diplomatic vessel Endeavor was a flurry of controlled chaos. Marcus Chen lay on the biobed, his body covered in regenerative gel, while multiple IVs pumped synthetic blood and oxygen supplements into his system. Dr. Sarah Winters worked with mechanical precision, her hands flying over the medical controls as she fought to repair the damage from his exposure to the Zephyrian atmosphere. 15 minutes, she muttered, checking the readouts. 15 minutes in that toxic soup and you nearly liquefied your lungs. What were you thinking, Marcus? Marcus tried to speak, but only managed a wet cough. Sarah immediately adjusted the oxygen flow, her expression softening slightly. Don't try to talk. Your vocal cords are shredded. It'll be days before you can speak properly again. She paused, then added quietly, if ever. The scarring is extensive. The door to the medical bay slid open, and Commander Lisa Park strode in, her face a mask of professional calm that didn't quite hide her fury. She stood at the foot of Marcus's bed, arms crossed, watching him for a long moment before speaking. That was the most idiotic, reckless, completely insane thing I've ever seen a soldier do, she said finally. You abandoned your post. You compromised the mission. You nearly killed yourself for what? To make a point? Marcus met her gaze steadily, unable to speak but unwilling to look away. Lisa's composure cracked slightly. Do you have any idea what's happening out there? The Zephyrians are in chaos. Half their delegation wants to declare war on humanity for the insult. The other half... She paused, running a hand through her hair. The other half is demanding to know more about us. Your little stunt has turned into a diplomatic nightmare. She activated a holographic display, showing feeds from various alien news networks. The image of Marcus, walking out of the palace, bloodied but unbowed, was being broadcast across a dozen different worlds. The headlines were in 100 different languages, but the sentiment was universal. Shock. The Altarians are calling it the Walk of Defiance. The Chronari have already composed 3 epic poems about it. And the Nebula Dancers? Lisa shook her head. They're saying you displayed a form of courage they've never encountered before. They want to study human psychology. Marcus raised an eyebrow questioningly. Oh, you want to know about the Zephyrians? Lisa's smile was sharp. Princess Lyrelay hasn't left her chambers since you walked out. Rumor has it she's been watching the footage on repeat, trying to understand what happened. And Ambassador Threen has requested an emergency meeting with our delegation. She deactivated the display and leaned forward. You changed everything, Marcus. I don't know if it's for better or worse yet, but you changed everything. The question is, was it worth it? Before Marcus could attempt a response, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Lisa's communicator buzzed urgently. Commander, we have incoming Zephyrian vessels, the bridge officer reported. 12 ships, royal configuration. They're not responding to our hails. Battle stations? Lisa asked. Negative, ma'am. They're maintaining distance. Wait, we're receiving a transmission. It's Princess Lyrelay. She's requesting permission to board. Lisa and Sarah exchanged glances. She wants to board our ship? Lisa confirmed. The same princess who called us evolutionary dead ends? Confirmed, Commander. She says it's urgent. She's alone, ma'am. No guards, no escort, just her personal shuttle. Lisa was quiet for a moment, then made her decision. Grant her permission. Full security protocols and... She glanced at Marcus. Prepare a portable atmospheric unit for the medical bay. Something tells me our patient is going to want to hear this. 20 minutes later, Princess Lyrelay stood in the medical bay, enclosed in a shimmering field that maintained her native atmosphere while allowing her to be in the same room as the humans. She looked different, her usual radiant confidence replaced by something more subdued. Her wings, normally spread in constant display, were folded tightly against her back. She stared at Marcus for a long moment, taking in the medical equipment, the healing burns on his skin, the breathing apparatus helping his damaged lungs. When she finally spoke, her voice lacked its earlier music. You could have died, she said simply. Marcus nodded slightly, still unable to speak. Why? Lyrelai pressed. Why would you risk everything just to what? Prove me wrong? Make me feel guilty? Lisa stepped forward. With respect, Your Highness, I don't think guilt was the objective. Marcus isn't the type to— I'm not talking to you. Lyrelai cut her off, her eyes never leaving Marcus. I'm talking to him. The human who threw away his armor and walked into death rather than endure my words. She floated closer to the biobed. Do you know what happened after you left? Marcus waited. Chaos, Lyrelai continued. Arguments. My own uncle told me I had shamed our entire species. The other delegates couldn't stop talking about it. About you, about what kind of being would choose suffering over submission. Her voice cracked slightly. About what kind of monster would drive them to it. She was quiet for a moment, then continued in a smaller voice. I've never been wrong before. In 19 years, no one has ever told me I was wrong. I'm a princess. I'm genetically perfect. I've been raised to believe that Zephyrians are the pinnacle of evolution, that our way is the only way that matters. Her wings rustled with agitation. And then you just walked away. No arguments, no attempts to prove your worth. You just left. And suddenly everyone was looking at me like I was the weak one, like I was the failure. Good, Sarah said bluntly, earning a sharp look from Lisa. Someone needed to knock you off your pedestal. Sarah, Lisa warned. No, she's right, Lyrelai said, surprising them all. I needed to fall. I needed to see. She gestured helplessly at Marcus. This, whatever this is. She floated back slightly, composing herself. I've spent the last 6 hours studying your species. Really studying, not just the propaganda we're fed. Do you know what I learned? No one answered. Humans shouldn't exist, Lyrelai said. By every metric we use to measure a species' viability, you should have gone extinct millennia ago. You're too fragile, too short-lived, too limited in your senses. Your planet tried to kill you with ice ages, predators, diseases. The universe tried to kill you with radiation, vacuum, hostile environments. She spread her wings slightly. My species evolved in paradise. Perfect atmosphere, abundant food, no natural predators. We developed flight because it was beautiful, not because we needed it to survive. We've never known true hardship. Her gaze returned to Marcus. But you, humans, evolved in hell. And instead of dying, you looked at hell and said, we'll make it heaven. You couldn't fly, so you built machines that soared higher than any wings. You couldn't breathe in space, so you carried your air with you. You couldn't see all spectrums of light, so you created instruments that could see for you. She moved closer to the atmospheric barrier, pressing one delicate hand against it. When you took off your armor, I thought you were giving up, admitting defeat. But that's not what you were doing, was it? Marcus managed a slight shake of his head. You were showing me that the armor wasn't what made you strong, Lyrelai continued. You were showing me that humans choose their tools, but aren't defined by them, that your greatest evolution wasn't physical. It was mental. The ability to look at any challenge, any impossibility, and find a way through sheer stubborn will. Tears, actual tears, something rarely seen among Zephyrians, traced down her face. I called you parasites. But we're the real parasites, aren't we? We've never had to struggle, never had to earn our place in the universe. It was given to us. You carved yours out of nothing, with blood and brilliance and an absolute refusal to surrender. She straightened, and for the first time since entering, looked like the princess she was, but different now, tempered by understanding. I came here to apologize, she said formally. Not just for my words, but for my ignorance. And to tell you that when you walked out of that palace, you didn't just change my mind. You changed our world. She gestured to the space outside the medical bay. Those 12 ships? They're not military. They're scientists, philosophers, historians, all wanting to understand humans better. My uncle has already drafted a new treaty, one that acknowledges humanity as equals in the galactic community. Real equals, not just diplomatic courtesy. Marcus's eyes widened slightly. But more than that, Lyrelei continued, you changed me. For the first time in my life, I saw strength that had nothing to do with natural gifts or genetic superiority. I saw someone willing to die for a principle, not in battle, but in something much harder, in choosing dignity over comfort, truth over safety. She looked at each of the humans in turn. I was raised to believe that struggle was a sign of inferiority. Now I understand it's the opposite. Only those who struggle can truly grow strong. Only those who face impossible odds can become impossible to defeat. Turning back to Marcus, she asked, "Can you forgive me? Not as a princess to a soldier, but as one sentient being to another." Marcus lifted his hand with effort, gesturing for something to write with. Sarah quickly provided a tablet. His hands shook as he typed, but his message was clear. Already forgiven. That's what humans do. We adapt, we endure, and we forgive. Welcome to the real universe, princess. It's harder out here, but the view is worth it. Lyrelei read the message, then did something no Zephyrian royalty had ever done before. She bowed. Not the casual nod of acknowledgement her kind typically gave, but a deep, respectful bow that spoke of genuine humility. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for walking away. Thank you for showing me who you really are. And thank you for surviving it because—" She met his eyes. "I think the universe needs humans. You show the rest of us what's possible when you refuse to accept impossible." She turned to leave, then paused. "My physician told me your lungs might never fully heal. The scars will always remain." She looked back at him. "Wear them proudly. They're proof that humanity's greatest strength isn't in your armor. It's in your ability to take it off and keep walking." As she departed, Lisa moved to Marcus's bedside. "Well, soldier," she said quietly, "it seems your insane stunt might have just secured humanity's place in the galaxy, though I'm still putting you on report for reckless endangerment." Marcus typed another message. "Worth it?" Sarah snorted. "Men, you're all idiots." But she was smiling as she said it. "Though I have to admit, it was one hell of an exit." Outside the medical bay, Princess Lyrelei stood at the viewport, watching the stars with new eyes. Her uncle's ship had sent a message asking when she would return, but she wasn't ready yet. She had too much to think about, too much to reconsider. "Your Highness?" A human ensign approached carefully. "Is there anything you need?" Lyrelei studied the young woman. No wings, no enhanced senses, just determination wrapped in a uniform and a friendly smile despite facing someone who had insulted her entire species hours ago. "Yes," Lyrelei said finally, "I need to learn. About your history, your struggles, your victories. I need to understand how a species that should have failed became strong enough to change a princess's mind with a single act of defiance." The ensign's smile widened. "I think we can help with that. We have a saying on Earth: fall 7 times, stand up 8. Would you like to know what it means?" Lyrelei nodded eagerly. Yes, I would." As they walked away together, discussing human philosophy and history, the medical bay's monitors showed Marcus's vitals slowly stabilizing. His lungs were scarred, possibly permanently, but functioning. His voice might never be the same, but his message had been heard across the galaxy. And somewhere in the vast expanse of space, on a dozen different worlds, beings who had witnessed or heard about the human who removed his armor and walked away began to reconsider what they thought they knew about strength, courage, and the unstoppable nature of the human spirit. The ripples of that single act of defiance would spread far and wide, changing minds, opening dialogues, and proving once and for all that sometimes the greatest victory comes not from fighting, but from having the courage to walk away on your own terms. 5 years had passed since Marcus Chen walked out of the Zephyrian royal palace, and the galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. The human embassy on Zephyria Prime stood as a testament to that change, not a sterile dome with artificial atmosphere, but an open structure where humans in light environmental suits mingled freely with their alien counterparts. The building itself had become a symbol, designed by both human and Zephyrian architects to represent the bridge between two very different species. Marcus stood on the embassy's observation deck, his breathing slightly labored but steady. The scars on his lungs would never fully heal. Dr. Winters had been right about that. He wore a discreet respiratory assistant, a small device that helped when the damage made breathing difficult. His voice, when he spoke, carried a permanent rasp that served as a reminder of that day. "You know, they want to put up a statue," a familiar voice said behind him. Marcus turned to see Princess Lyrelai approaching. She had changed dramatically over the years. Gone was the sheltered child who had mocked humanity's weakness. In her place stood a young woman who had dedicated herself to xenological studies, becoming one of the foremost experts on interspecies relations. Her wings, once held in constant display of superiority, now moved with purposeful grace. "A statue?" Marcus asked, his damaged voice carrying a hint of amusement. "In the palace courtyard. The human who walked away." She moved to stand beside him, looking out at the city below. "The artist wants to capture the moment you removed your helmet. They're calling it a monument to courage." "It wasn't courage," Marcus said quietly. "It was just exhaustion. I was tired of pretending that mockery didn't hurt, that contempt didn't sting. I was tired of being diplomatic when someone was telling me I shouldn't exist." Lyrelai was quiet for a moment. "You know what the real irony is? That moment of exhaustion did more for human-alien relations than decades of careful diplomacy. Although," she glanced at him with a slight smile, "I don't recommend it as a standard negotiation tactic." Marcus chuckled, then coughed slightly. Lyrelai's expression immediately shifted to concern, but he waved her off. "I'm fine. Just reminds me I'm human." He paused. "Fragile, technology-dependent human." "Stop it," Lyrelai said firmly. "We've been through this. Your fragility isn't a weakness. It's what made you strong. Do you know what my father said when he finally watched the footage?" Marcus shook his head. He said, "Only a species that knows it can die can truly understand how to live." He made it required viewing for all Zephyrian military academies. Your walk out of that palace is now taught alongside our greatest military victories. She laughed softly. "A victory where no one fought, no one died, and the only casualty was my pride. How is your father? I heard he was advocating for the new integration programs. He's become humanity's biggest supporter in the royal court. He likes to say that humans are the universe's way of teaching other species humility." Lyrelai's expression grew more serious. "But there's another reason I'm here, Marcus. We have a situation." Marcus straightened, his military instincts still sharp despite his role as a civilian advisor now. "What kind of situation?" "The Krolex Empire. They've been making aggressive moves toward human colonies in the Outer Rim. They see your expansion as a threat." She paused. "They're calling humans the infestation, saying you spread too quickly, adapt too readily, that you're disrupting the natural order." "Sounds familiar," Marcus said dryly. "That's what worries me. The Krolex are not like us. They won't be swayed by demonstrations of spirit or acts of defiance. They believe in strength through domination. Period." She turned to face him fully. "The Galactic Council is meeting tomorrow to discuss the human question. Again." Marcus sighed. Let me guess. They want us to slow our expansion, limit our technology sharing, basically know our place. Some do, but you have more allies than you think. The Altarians credit human medical technology with saving their species from a plague. The Nebula Dancers say human music has revolutionized their culture. And we... She smiled. The Zephyrians will stand with humanity. My father has made that clear. Because of one stupid soldier who couldn't keep his armor on? Because of one human who showed us that strength isn't about what you're born with. It's about what you choose to do with what you have. She pulled out a data pad. But we need more than symbolic support. The Kroleks respect only power, and they're questioning whether humanity has it. Marcus studied the tactical data on the pad. The Kroleks were formidable, a warrior species that had never lost a major conflict. Their natural armor plating made them walking tanks. Their redundant organ systems meant they could survive injuries that would kill most species instantly. In a straight military confrontation, humanity would struggle. "What are you thinking?" Lyreley asked, noting his expression. "I'm thinking," Marcus said slowly, "that they're making the same mistake you did. They're measuring strength by the wrong metrics." Before Lyreley could respond, Marcus's communicator buzzed. Commander Park's face appeared on the small screen, her expression grim. "Marcus, we need you at Strategic Command. The Kroleks just issued an ultimatum. Humanity has 72 hours to agree to their restrictions, or they'll consider it an act of war." "On my way," Marcus said, then looked at Lyreley. "Want to see how humans handle threats?" "Wouldn't miss it," she replied. The Strategic Command Center was buzzing with activity when they arrived. Humans and allied species worked side by side, data flowing across multiple screens as they analyzed the Kroleks threat. At the center of it all, Admiral Chen, no relation to Marcus despite the shared surname, coordinated the response with calm efficiency. "Ah, Marcus. Princess Lyreley." The Admiral nodded to them both. "I assume you've heard about our Kroleks problem?" "Just the basics," Marcus replied. "They want to put humanity in a box?" "Essentially. Limit our colonies to existing territories, restrict our technology development, and most importantly, stop sharing our innovations with other species." The Admiral brought up a holographic display of Kroleks forces. "They have 3 battle fleets positioned near our border colonies. Each fleet could devastate our defenses." "So we fight?" someone asked. "With what?" another officer responded. "Our ships are tough, but Kroleks vessels are flying fortresses. We'd lose 3 ships for every one of theirs." "Then we don't fight their way," Marcus said, stepping forward. "Admiral, I'd like to address the Kroleks delegation directly." Admiral Chen raised an eyebrow. "Marcus, with all due respect, your last diplomatic speech ended with you nearly dying." "Exactly," Marcus smiled, the expression pulling at the scars on his face. "And look how that turned out." Lyreley caught on first. "You want to do it again. Show them what human strength really looks like." "Not quite the same way," Marcus assured her. "I've grown fond of breathing, but the Kroleks need to understand that humanity's power doesn't come from natural armor or redundant organs. It comes from something they can't quantify or counter." "Which is?" Admiral Chen asked. "Our absolute refusal to accept anyone else's limitations on our potential," Marcus said simply. "Permission to make the galaxy's worst diplomatic speech, Admiral?" Chen studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "Granted. The Council meets in 18 hours. Don't die this time, Marcus. The paperwork was a nightmare." The Grand Council chamber on Unity Station was packed beyond capacity. Representatives from every major species in the galaxy had come to witness what might be the beginning of the first true interstellar war. The Kroleks delegation dominated one side of the chamber, their massive forms armored in ceremonial battle plate that doubled as a not-so-subtle threat. General Krone, the Kroleks' supreme commander, stood at the center, his 4 arms crossed in a gesture of dominance. The human infection has spread far enough, he rumbled, his voice like grinding stone. They multiply like bacteria, stealing technology, copying what better species have created. They must be contained before they contaminate the entire galaxy. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Some species nodded agreement, others looked troubled. Humanity's rapid expansion had indeed been remarkable. Some would say alarming. "The humans may speak," the council moderator announced. Marcus walked to the center of the chamber. He wore no armor this time, just a simple Earth Force dress uniform. The respiratory assistant was visible on his collar. He'd made no attempt to hide it. When he spoke, his damaged voice carried clearly through the chamber's acoustics. "General Kron is right," he began, causing a stir of surprise. "Humans do spread quickly. We do adapt readily. We do take technology and ideas from other species and make them our own." He paused, looking around the chamber. "We also share everything we create. The medical advances that saved the Altarians, human innovation based on Zephyrian biology, the agricultural techniques feeding a dozen worlds, human stubbornness combined with nebula dancer chemistry. The defense grid protecting this very station, human engineering powered by Chronari energy theory." He faced General Kron directly. "You see contamination, I see collaboration. You see theft, I see synthesis. You see weakness that needs tools, I see strength that builds them." "Pretty words," Kron sneered. "But words won't stop Krolek's battle fleets. Your species hides behind technology because without it, you're nothing. Soft, fragile, short-lived nothings." "You're right," Marcus said again. "Without our technology, we're fragile. A Krolex could tear a human apart with one hand. Your natural armor can deflect most energy weapons. You can survive in environments that would kill us in seconds." He smiled. "So tell me, General, why are you so afraid of us?" Kron's scales flushed dark with anger. "Krolex fear nothing. Then why the ultimatum? Why the threats? Why the need to contain us?" Marcus stepped closer. "I'll tell you why. Because deep down, you know something that terrifies you. You know that we're going to surpass you. Not because we're stronger or tougher or naturally superior, but because we have something you don't. And what is that, human?" "We have to earn our survival every single day," Marcus said simply. "You were born armored, so you never learned to make armor. You were born strong, so you never learned to build strength. You were born survivors, so you never learned to truly fight for survival." He turned to address the entire chamber. 5 years ago, I stood in a room full of aliens who thought humanity was weak because we needed technology to survive among them. So I took off my armor and walked away, nearly dying in the process. Do you know what I learned? The chamber was silent. I learned that every species in this room has natural gifts that make their lives easier, and that's made them weaker. The Zephyrians can fly, so they never invented aircraft until they met us. The Altarians can see across dimensions, so they never developed advanced sensors until humans showed them how. The Krolex are born warriors, so they never learned the most important part of warfare. Which is? Kron demanded. Innovation, adaptation, the willingness to change, grow, and become something more than what evolution made you. Marcus touched his respiratory assistant. This device? It exists because humans refuse to accept that damaged lungs mean death. Our ships? They exist because we refuse to accept that no wings meant no flight. Our entire civilization exists because we looked at a universe trying to kill us and said, not today. He walked closer to Kron, close enough that the general could crush him with a casual swipe. You want to contain humanity? Go ahead and try. Lock us in a box. Limit our expansion. Restrict our technology. His damaged voice grew stronger. We'll find a way out. We always do. Because that's what humans are. The universe's escape artists. Every wall becomes a door. Every limit becomes a challenge. Every impossible becomes, watch this. Threats, human? Kron growled. No. A promise. Marcus pulled out a small device. This is a quantum communicator, human-designed, based on principles we learned from 12 different species. It can send messages instantly across any distance. We created it because light-speed communication was too slow for us. He set it on the ground between them. In the last 5 years, we've shared this technology freely. 23 species now use it. Their economies have grown, their cultures have connected, their civilizations have advanced. He stepped back. That's what humans do, General. We don't just survive, we help everyone else thrive. We don't just adapt, we help everyone else evolve. You see us as an infection? We're more like an inoculation. We're the challenge that makes the entire galaxy stronger. Kron stared at the device, then at Marcus. You think your tools make you our equals? No, Marcus said. I think our refusal to accept inequality makes us unstoppable. You can destroy our colonies. You can blast our ships. You can even kill every human in the galaxy. But you can't kill what we represent. The idea that no species, no matter how weak, has to accept the limits others place on them. He turned to the Council. Humanity requests no special treatment. We ask for no protection. All we ask is the right to exist, to grow, to share what we learn. If the Kroleks want to stop us, they're welcome to try. But know this. We've survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and our own stupidity. We've survived things that would have wiped out any superior species. And we'll survive this too. Marcus began walking back to the human delegation, then paused. Oh, and General, you might want to check your fleet communications. That quantum communicator I left? It's been transmitting this entire conversation to every Krolek ship, every Krolek's world. Your people are watching. They're seeing a human, weak and fragile, standing up to their strongest warrior. They're wondering why you need 3 battle fleets to contain a species that can't even breathe without assistance. They're asking themselves what they're really afraid of. Kron roared and checked his communications. Sure enough, channels were flooding with messages from Krolek's worlds. Not support for war, but questions, doubts, curiosity about these humans who faced annihilation without flinching. This is trickery, Kron snarled. This is transparency, Marcus corrected. Another human innovation. We believe everyone should see the truth, not just what their leaders tell them. He smiled. Your move, General. Attack us, and the galaxy will see the mighty Kroleks crushing a species for the crime of refusing to stay weak, or accept that strength comes in many forms. And maybe, just maybe, you could learn something from us, parasites. The chamber erupted in discussion. Delegations huddled, debating, arguing. Through it all, Marcus stood quietly with the human delegation, his breathing slightly labored but his posture unbowed. Lyrelai appeared at his side. That was insane, she whispered. Broadcasting to their entire empire? You've either prevented a war or started a revolution. Maybe both, Marcus replied. Humans are good at multitasking. Hours passed. Arguments raged. Finally, General Kron returned to the center, his massive form somehow looking less imposing than before. The Kroleks Empire withdraws its ultimatum, he said, each word seemingly pulled from him by force. We will observe, learn. Perhaps there are different forms of strength. The chamber erupted in celebration and relief. War had been averted, at least for now. But Marcus knew the real victory was smaller and larger than that. Smaller because one mind had been changed. Larger because that one mind commanded fleets. As the delegations dispersed, Kron approached Marcus. Up close, the general was even more imposing, a mountain of armor and muscle. He stared down at the human for a long moment. You broadcast weakness and call it strength, Kron said finally. I broadcast humanity, Marcus replied. Weakness, strength, fear, hope, all of it. That's what makes us unstoppable. We don't hide from what we are. We use it. Kron considered this, then did something unprecedented. He extended one massive hand carefully, as if afraid he might break the human. Marcus grasped it without hesitation, his small hand dwarfed by the alien's grip. "Perhaps," Kron said slowly, "the Kroleks have been strong for so long, we've forgotten how to grow stronger. Perhaps we could learn from your weakness." "Always happy to share," Marcus said. "That's what humans do." As Kron departed, Lyrelay shook her head in amazement. "You really are insane. All of you humans, beautifully, brilliantly insane." "That's our secret," Marcus said, watching the various delegations leave with new conversations, new connections, new possibilities. Everyone else evolves to fit their environment. Humans? We evolve to change it. Later that night, in his quarters on Unity Station, Marcus stood at his window looking out at the stars. His reflection stared back, scarred face, damaged lungs, a body that bore the price of his defiance, but also determination, hope, and an unbreakable spirit that no amount of natural armor could match. A soft chime indicated a message. He activated his communicator to find it flooded with communications from across the galaxy. Humans in colonies everywhere were celebrating. Allied species were expressing support. Even some Kroleks were sending curious, tentative questions about human culture and technology. But one message stood out. It was from a young Zephyrian, barely older than Lyrelay had been when they first met. "I saw the broadcast today. My parents always told me humans were weak. But you stood before the strongest warrior in the galaxy with nothing but words and will, and he stepped back. I want to be like that. I want to learn human strength." "Is it true anyone can learn it?" Marcus smiled and typed his reply. "It's the easiest and hardest thing in the universe. All you have to do is refuse to accept impossible. The rest takes care of itself. Welcome to the human way of thinking. Fair warning, it's addictive." He sent the message and returned to watching the stars. Out there, across thousands of worlds, minds were changing. Not because humanity had proven their strength through force or natural gifts, but because one damaged soldier had shown them that true power comes from refusing to accept anyone else's definition of weakness. The galaxy would never be the same. And somewhere in the vast expanse of space, the story of the human who removed his armor and walked away continued to spread, evolving with each telling, inspiring with each hearing, proving with every breath that sometimes the greatest strength is simply the courage to be exactly what you are, limitations, scars, assistive devices, and all. Humanity had found its place among the stars not by becoming something else, but by being unashamedly, defiantly, brilliantly human. And that, Marcus thought as sleep finally claimed him, was the most human thing of all. 5 years ago, he had walked out of a palace, leaving his armor behind. Today, he had shown the galaxy that humanity's true armor wasn't made of metal or technology. It was made of will, ingenuity, and an absolute refusal to accept that weak meant worthless. The princess had been wrong. Humans weren't evolutionary dead ends. They were evolution's wild card, the species that looked at the rules of survival and decided to write their own. And as the galaxy would learn in the years to come, that made them the most dangerous and wonderful species of all, because humans didn't just adapt to the universe, they adapted the universe to them. And they brought everyone else along for the ride. Earths,